Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 260. Today, we are talking all about finding wonder in your homeschool, different ways that you can incorporate wonder and delight into your homeschool day for you and your kids to enjoy and just make homeschooling a little bit more exciting for each of you, and ways to do it practically, easily, and strategically throughout your homeschool day and week. This is a fun episode for me because I love spreading wonder and enjoyment and adventure to my kids and really anybody that I meet. If you're part of the Learners Lab, our online membership community, you know this. I love just doing a little bit more, as much as I can, for the kids and the parents in there, just spreading wonder and delight. We're spending the next couple of months talking about my brand new book, The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners. Inside that community, diving deeply into each chapter, one by one. So if you're not a member yet, you can jump in anytime. You can check out the link to join us over on the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com. And you can also check out words from our sponsor, CTC Math, and see why I love that math program and use it myself. All right, let's get on with today's episode. Okay, so let's talk about this. I love this topic because homeschooling is supposed to be about enjoying our kids and the time that we get to spend with them. And there's no better way to do this than to work actively at finding joy and wonder in our everyday learning and our everyday experiences with our kids. And granted, I am a mom just like you. I have neurodivergent kids, all sorts of challenges in and out every single day, but I really love my kiddos. I love the time I get to spend with them, and I want them to know that. So while I acknowledge that homeschooling is challenging and homeschooling is a job, and we can't have fun all the time because we need to do the things that we need to do to be successful in life and to help our children be successful. But if we as parents are helping our kids spark joy in their lives and find the wonder that's a part of every day, then their homeschool will be richer, yes, but their lives will be richer too, because this sets them up for a lifestyle of looking for the good and the interesting and the beautiful and the wonderful and the joyful in every single day. And the truth of the matter is, as parents who are homeschooling and doing something different than the norm, especially as parents, like many of us are, of neurodivergent kids, it can be difficult to find the joy and wonder on a daily basis. And so when we train ourselves, in turn, train our kids to look for that, we all live a better life. So let's do this together. Let's find a way to spark joy in our everyday learning and discover wonder in our lifetime. I remember packing my kids up, and I've told this story before, so if you heard it at a convention or a conference or a speaking event or on the podcast or somewhere else, just bear with me because the story is worth repeating. I was taking my kids to a dentist appointment, and my kids are one of those rare breeds that actually don't mind going to the dentist. They have had the same pediatric dentist since they were 6 months old. He's a family friend and actually just amazing with kids. And so they looked forward to going to see Dr. Frank every 6 months and, getting their teeth cleaned and checked out and then diving into the treasure chest. So we're on our way to the dentist, and our kind of routine and fun thing that we do when we go to the dentist, because I never liked the dentist growing up. And when my kids were young, I was bribing them, but it turned out I didn't really need to bribe them because they didn't mind the dentist. But then it just became what we did. We go to the dentist, and all of the kids rotate through their appointments because, homeschooling moms, right? You group everything together so you can just get it all done at once. It's so much better to not be out of the house back to back to back and just go and do it all at once. My kids would rotate through. They'd be with different hygienists in different rooms, and I'd just bop from room to room, checking out who needed me to hear what was going on the most. And then we went and got our donuts. And then I got on the highway and started driving. And nobody said anything. They were just doing their own thing, reading or playing on their Kindles, until one of my kids looked up and said, "This isn't the way to go home." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I just kept driving. And then the other kids started noticing too that we're like on the road for longer than we should be to get home. Where are we going? And the murmur started. And I said, "Hey, we're going on a surprise ride." A surprise ride is what I called an impromptu, out of the house, do something different day or weekend. A surprise ride was just simply getting in the car and going somewhere where my kids had no idea of where we were going. I started it when Trevor was really small and he was my only kid, and it just kept going. Now, as I'm recording this episode, I'm thinking I haven't really done a surprise ride in a while because my kids are big. My youngest is 11, and of course that's small, but my oldest is 21. With two teens at home, the 11-year-old and then the 21-year-old kind of flitting in and out, it's hard to get people together for a surprise ride. Everybody's got their own things going on, but I need to do this again because it's so rich. What we were doing this particular day, I had, unbeknownst to the kids, I had their suitcases packed, and their little mini suitcases or duffel bags, whatever they had at the time, and they were in the back of the car, the van, covered up with a blanket. So the kids didn't know that they were there. There was also a cooler with food, and we were driving. So we just kept driving, and I kept dodging the questions about where we were going, and I'd turn up the radio and ignore them because that's the idea of a surprise ride. You don't know where we're going until we get there. And it could be like going to the park for a picnic. It could be going and getting ice cream for lunch. It could be going to the beach for the day. It could be going over to a friend's house. It could be going away for the weekend. In this case, it was one of those bigger ones. I had gotten a really good midweek deal in the middle of February for Kalahari Resorts and Indoor Water Park in Sandusky, Ohio. Sandusky is about an hour away from where we were living at the time, maybe a little bit more. And so we drove and drove and drove, and the kids and we pulled up to the parking lot, and they just went crazy. It was so fun. And we had the best overnight. We got into our big hotel room, and it had a little kitchen in it, so I could put all the food that I'd brought in the refrigerator so we didn't have to spend extra money in the restaurants. And we got right into our bathing suits and went right into the water park, and we had so much fun. Went back upstairs, had dinner, went back down into the arcade for the evening. And then the next day, packed up our clothes and stuff except for a bag with a change of clothes for each of us, and loaded everything into the car, and then went back into the water park for the day and spent the whole day in the water park. We had some packed lunches, and then loaded up the car around dinner time when everybody had finally had enough and we'd gotten changed. And then we drove through a fast food restaurant and ate on the way home. And it was so wonderful. And the beauty of these kinds of things is that, yeah, they're big and they're something exciting and spontaneous and interesting for the kids, but they are what we call shared stories. They bring us together, right? They are core memories that our kids are going to have, and they're going to remember when they're older. I've said this in the podcast before, and I'll say it again. Our goal is to raise our kids to be the best adults that they can be, and to be as conscious about helping them make the right decisions as much as we can, knowing that ultimately they become the people that they're supposed to be, and we just want to give them the best start on it. But then in addition, we really want, if we can, to encourage our kids to build a relationship with one another, because they will have each other long after we are gone. And so having these kinds of shared stories and experiences and fun and joyful, spontaneous connections that they've made with one another over their childhood, they can reminisce about that time mom took us to the dentist and we ended up at Kalahari for an overnight, long after we're gone. When we open ourselves up to do these kinds of things, we give our kids the gift of a lifestyle of exploring the world that they live in through curiosity, excitement, spontaneity, creativity, and just joy. And we teach them to roll with the punches, roll with whatever's happening. So for a kiddo who's very rigid in their thinking, like one of mine is, having a surprise ride and not knowing where they're going can be a little bit stressful. But with the joy at the end of it, it helps to get them through in a safe way some of those struggles that they have. Now, I'm not saying that the only way to spark joy and discover wonder in your homeschool and in your family life is to go for these overnights as often as you can. That was an example of a surprise ride we took that was big. But we've also done things like blow off half of the day and go to the park, or curl up because it's rainy and gloomy and we all feel blah, and we cuddle up and curl up on the couch together and watch a video and pop popcorn. It can be anything. But the idea is to help our kids find joy and wonder in everyday learning and living, because this can have a long-term positive impact on both our kids long into adulthood and ourselves. And then it can build a stronger bond between us and help us develop the relationship that is the type that brings our kids back to us when they're grown. I don't know about you, but I know for me, one of my goals is to grow children who become adults, who are secure and strong and confident and resilient and brave and can do anything they need to do for themselves and with themselves, but still want to come back to me and spend time with me as people. I want them to not need me, but to still want to be around me. And so when we do things that help our kids find joy and wonder in their everyday, we help them see the beauty in the world, and in doing so, we strengthen our connection with them. Let's talk about what wonder is. When we are exploring the world through the lens of curiosity and excitement, we are bringing wonder into it. When we encourage our kids to look around for the good and the beautiful in whatever and wherever we are, we help them see that life is full of things to be interested in, curious about, and to find joy in. One of the things I love watching my children do, especially my teen girls, is compliment other people. I have always tried to make a point to reach out to people when we go different places and to tell them something I like about what they're wearing or their eye color or their hairstyle or the dress that they're wearing or whatever, because I think it's an important thing to show our kids how to just be kind. And I know from experiencing it on my own, the beauty that it can bring to a day and the joy that you can feel from it. Interestingly, this just happened to me over the weekend, and I was telling my daughter about it. My 17-year-old is wonderful at this. Molly goes out of her way. I notice when we go shopping, she'll often stop another teenage girl in an aisle and say, "I just love your skirt. That is so cute." And just genuinely give a very specific compliment. And I watch the people to whom she's talking, and I see their faces light up. I know the joy that this brings, especially to a teen girl, right? And I've done this for years, and this is definitely something that has been modeled. I look for a way to be kind, whether I'm going through a drive-through, going through the line at Starbucks, inside, picking up groceries, whatever. I always try to compliment or say hi or ask about their day. And I know that this is why Molly does this so much. I was in line at the local theater. I was watching Molly and some of her friends perform in a show this past weekend. And I was in line for the restroom during intermission. And a teenage girl, she probably was like 15, maybe 16, but I don't think she was quite 16. She turned to me in line, and interestingly, it was the perfect time for this to happen to someone. I was feeling just blah. I had a late night. I didn't have a chance to curl my hair or even flat iron it, so I just pulled it back in a little ponytail, and I didn't even have time. We were running so late for Molly's call that I didn't even have time to put on much makeup. I just put on a little bit of concealer and just a little bit of bronzer just to brighten my face up a little bit, but I was feeling rough. And this sweet girl turned to me in line and she said, "You are just so beautiful. I just wanted to tell you that. You are absolutely beautiful." And I was like, just stunned, silent for a minute. And I said, "Thank you so much." I mean it. I really mean it. And then she turned and she continued talking to her friend. I am a 50-year-old woman who still feels badly about myself sometimes. And I can't even tell you the joy that brought me that this child, teen, burgeoning into young womanhood, would take the time away from her conversation with her friend and be brave enough to say that to a stranger. And it made me feel so good and reminded me of the joy that you can have when somebody just notices you. And so when we do that for our kids, we help them see how to spread joy as well as engage in it and feel it. Learning and life doesn't have to be confined to textbooks and rhetoric and lectures and this is what you should do's. It can come from just living. It can come from us modeling for our kids how to live a more joyful existence and a life filled with seeking wonder and enjoyment. And we can do it every day. It is so important because it helps our kids stay engaged in their world, engaged in their lives, and to see the beauty around them. When we have neurodivergent kids, we often have anxious kids. We often have kids who struggle with or flirt with the edges of depression. We have kids who don't feel worthy all the time or struggle with imposter syndrome or perfectionism. And when we help them see the beauty around them, we help them see that life's worth living and it's worth engaging in. It also fosters that love of lifelong learning and critical thinking and creativity. And they're secure in the knowledge that they don't know everything and there's always something new to discover or someone new to talk to, and that everyone has a story to share, and that there's always something to be learned from somebody else and something to give to other people. So when we focus on living this lifestyle of wonder and joy, we have so many social, emotional, physiological, and academic benefits to it, and it grows with us all our lives. So how do we do it? How can we really lean into cultivating wonder in our daily lives? Let's talk about, I've given a lot of examples of just social and emotional ways to spread joy and to exhibit joy and to find joy. But let's talk about that idea of wonder and discovery. When your kiddo asks why or asks about something, use it as an opportunity to explore a new subject together. Say, hey, that's a great question. Let's find out. Instead of just answering it or sending them to Google or whatever, discover it together. Go check out YouTube, watch a couple of videos together. Tell them you always wondered that too, or you've never wondered about that before. Let's go figure it out. Encourage them to ask open-ended questions. Let them lead discussions with you, or even lessons in your homeschool. Have them help pick out what you're going to learn. This fall, we're going to be studying entomology because my 15-year-old daughter is fascinated by insects. And so much so, I think I said this on the last podcast episode, but she asked for a tank of blue death-feigning beetles for her birthday, her 15th birthday. And so she observes them throughout the day, and we're going to be studying it. Give them the opportunity to ask questions, discover things, be curious about things, and make sure you're leaving time and creating space for that unstructured learning and discovery in your schedule, because you never know what spontaneous discoveries you're going to make. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about CTC Math for the last couple of years. They have been supportive sponsors of the podcast, and as I've told you before, I'm a customer. My kids use CTC Math in their homeschool. I am a paying subscriber and have been for a number of years, even before CTC sponsored the podcast. I am a raving fan, and I will continue talking about their resources and their program until long after I'm done homeschooling, because I think it's really versatile for so many different types of families, whether your kids are super strong in an area or super weak in an area of math. It allows you to customize their education when it comes to math. I've talked to so many families over the years that I want to share with you a message that I received from Sandy, a longtime listener who was content in what they were using until, again, they weren't, and they switched over to CTC Math based on a recommendation that they'd heard on the podcast. Sandy writes, "We too started using CTC Math following your recommendation, Colleen. One of my sons is so dedicated. Then, after watching over his shoulder, my other son started using it too. They both now do an hour each workday by choice. I even enjoy it myself. I do the lessons with them, which is a handy brush up, and will occasionally do some of the algebra lessons ahead of time. Math was not my strong suit in school, but now I love it, and I wish the program had been available in the 80s. Too many people think they're terrible at math, but I truly believe we all just need a method of learning that suits us. CTC Math seems to work for all three of us." So check out ctcmath.com or go to the link over in the show notes for this episode and click on it to go over there and see the offer that they have for podcast listeners. You don't have to just take my word for it. You can take Sandy's as well. CTC is a great program and could be a wonderful benefit for your homeschool. All right, let's get back to today's episode. You never know what is going to be sparked. We went to a reptile fair, a reptile show, 6 months ago or so, just for fun, because I'd read about it and I heard that they come to this fairgrounds about an hour away from us every single month. And I just thought it would be fun to take my oldest and my third born, because both of them love reptiles and amphibians, and then just to drag my youngest because he needs to get out more. Frankly, he would rather stay in and play video games all day. The four of us went, and this is where Logan discovered the blue death feigning beetles. I never even imagined we'd be seeing beetles and other insects and isopods and things like that at the reptile fair. I probably should have, because anybody who likes snakes and lizards and salamanders and axolotls and stuff, often that goes hand in hand with raising roaches to feed them and mealworms and superworms, and then you get fascinated by the different things. It makes sense. But that trip to the reptile fair, just to look at turtles and snakes and lizards and things like that, led us to discover these beetles that were really fascinating. And while she wanted them then and there because they looked so cool and it was actually quite interesting when they fainted, I said, no, that we're not bringing beetles home today, but let's learn about them and see if it's something that you might want to continue being interested in. And she did. She learned more and more about them. And what she discovered sold me on getting them for her birthday. They're very easy to care for. They live long. They're hardy. They're frankly really hard to kill. You can almost neglect them and they'll still be fine. They are desert animals and they are scavengers, which means they go long periods of time without any kind of food or liquids. They get all of their moisture from their food. They need very little, and they don't care what they eat. They're scavengers. We could throw in a piece of chicken left over from dinner, or we can throw in some vegetables or some fruits or a bug that we found outside that's dead. It doesn't matter. They'll just eat whatever they can eat, and they're clean. They just need a little tank of play sand. They can't fly. So while we do have a lid on ours, you don't actually need a lid on them because they're not going to get out. And so this trip to the reptile fair ended up being a spontaneous discovery of this new species of beetle none of us had known about, and has led to us now raising them. And it's been so fun and so interesting. And I encourage you to just try new little things here and there, because you never know what it's going to spark, and it can lead to some really interesting conversations. Another practical way to just add joy and wonder into your everyday and your homeschool is to make time for margin. Give your calendar margin and open space so that you can take advantage of slow times and then use those slow moments to just let life unfold without the pressure of having to be somewhere and do something. Now, I'm going to be the first to say that sometimes this just isn't possible. I live a lifestyle right now where we struggle to find margin in our day. We struggle to find slow and quiet because I have very busy kids in very busy activities, and I have multiple children that do different things. And an example, on the day that I'm recording this, it's later at night, and I am finally able to record because people are supposed to be asleep or in bed, and I'm listening to the outside room as I'm recording this, and I'm hoping that the mic isn't picking it up, but I'm also hoping that my editor is good enough to squelch it in the background if it can't be, or if it can be picked up, because those people who were supposed to be asleep already are slamming doors upstairs. And there's nothing I can do about that, because if I waited till everything was perfect, I would never, ever be able to record. Unfortunately, my life lately has just been crazy, and it's been moving from one thing to another. And it's been next to impossible to find a time of the day during the week, a consistent time to record and not be interrupted. And you just do the best you can in those situations, right? And so here I am recording, and it's late at night, and I have my oldest is 21, and he's out swimming with a friend who came over, and my next oldest is upstairs, not able to sleep, and I just heard my 15-year-old come out of her room and slam a door. So you find the slow when you can, and you take it, and then you just roll with it when you can't find it. But the more you're looking for time to just unwind and give your kids and yourself a chance to just let life unfold, the better off you'll be. And the truth is, I actually am one of those people who don't mind the interruptions. I do get frustrated sometimes when I have a deadline or something going on, or I really just want to break. But I'm a big picture person, so I know that this time is fleeting. I know that within the next couple of years, I'll be down to 1 or 2 children at home. And so I let those sounds and noises unfold, because there's going to be a time in the not so distant future where I have no problem recording podcasts anytime I want to, because nobody's around. So I'd rather be interrupted. I'd rather you hear a door slam every once in a while so that we can enjoy the moments that we have together as a family. On top of all of those things, creating space, leaving time for spontaneous discoveries, making time for those slow moments and margin in your day, make room for play. When we incorporate play, and I'm going to talk all about play on an episode coming up in the next 2 weeks, but when we make room for play and we approach life with a playful spirit, everything improves. When our kids are young, that means imaginative play, building, being creative. When our kids are older, that means playing with language. That means maybe sending them silly memes through an Instagram DM, or forwarding funny TikToks to them, or singing terribly when you're in the car together, or having rounds of bad karaoke on New Year's Eve. But finding ways to incorporate play is so important, because it really does bring enjoyment. If your kids are interested, let them make up their own games. Let them explore in the ways that they want to, and just embrace that, because you never know where it's going to take you. Now, again, I've said this before in this episode, I'll be the first to admit that this is not always easy to do. Sometimes we get caught up in we got to get this done, we've got this checklist or that checklist, or we've got these things that have to be done on a daily basis, and that's true. We really do need to get things done. Our kids need to learn how to read. They need to do some math. They need to grow in their writing and articulation and critical thinking skills. They need to be able to infer from the written and the spoken word. They need to be able to defend an argument and their position. They need to understand history so they can avoid making the same mistakes, or so they can make the world a better place. We need them to understand things, so we need them to get things done too. And it's normal to feel overwhelmed or too busy to just stop and find joy. And there are obstacles to this. Burnout is one of those. I'm coming off of a season right now. I'm hoping that I'm entering back into I can do this, we got this kind of mode. But I'm coming off of a very burnt out season where it was really difficult to just get anything done. And my house reflects that. I was just in my family room this evening trying to straighten up, and I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really can't remember the last time this room was vacuumed. And it shows. Like it's very obvious that the room hasn't been vacuumed in weeks because there are tufts of dog hair everywhere, and there's shredded dog toys stuff and trash that a kid just threw down instead of walking to the trash can. And feeling overwhelmed with that is absolutely normal, but it's still important to find that joy and spark of wonder where you can. And so maybe that means spending an hour or two getting as much as you can under control, and then taking a break and playing a video game with your kids. Playing a board game with your kids, drawing with them. One of the things I did for this year, I don't know if you're listening to this and you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back and listen to it. I'll talk a little bit more about rituals and when things look different than they do in past years and current years. And one of the things I talk about is our not back to school day. And I give the kids supplies and fun stuff for the school year, something interesting to do. And this year, our not back to school week looks very different. And again, I go into detail in episode 259. But one of those ways is we're really pressed for time this first semester. There's a lot going on with all of the activities that the kids are in, and they're all very important and valid activities. All of my oldest daughter's activities are related to the future she's designing for herself, along with the college application process. And my second-born daughter, my younger daughter, is involved in some programs that could benefit her. She's a freshman in high school this year, and they could really benefit her going into the college search as she gets a little bit older, and open up opportunities for part-time work and scholarships and things like that, not to mention letters of recommendation. And so it's just a very busy and different year. And so I knew that it was going to be hard to find times that we could get away and do things. And so I wanted something that was interesting, fun, and still educational in its way that we could do together. So I bought all four of us that are still homeschooling. I'm including myself because I will be the longest homeschool person in my homeschool since I have to go through all of the children. And that's something my friend Pam Barnhill reminded me of. She said it at a conference that we were both speaking at on a Q&A panel we were doing together. And it just struck me as such wisdom and truth that I often think about it. Of all of the people in our homeschool, we are the ones who are going to be there the longest, longer than any one of our children. And so it's important that whatever it is we decide to do in our homeschool, we can do it and we will follow through because we're the ones who are going to be there for the longest amount of time. So I wanted to do something that would be enjoyable for me and bring us all together. And it's hard with the schedules that we're keeping and the interests that we have. So I bought these little pocket watercolor sets, and they're little travel watercolor. They have like the watercolor palettes and a brush that holds water and a little felt pouch and a little pocket inside the pouch to hold 5x7 like postcard size watercolor pieces of paper. They're actually watercolor postcards. The idea being we can throw those in a bag or our pockets, and we can just go for a nature walk or just go in the backyard and paint or take them with us and find an adventure. And it would be something none of us have really done much watercolor. So it's something that we could do together and be bad at together and see if it sparks an interest. And I'm looking forward to it. And the kids brushed over that when they got their things the other day, but I know it's something that will bring us together. And so sometimes you can't do all the big things, but sometimes you can just find one little thing to incorporate and help you stay present and then use other opportunities to give yourself a chance to recharge so that you're able to overcome that burnout when it happens. The other thing is, a lot of times we put this perfectionism on ourselves. I am a perfectionist. It is something I've struggled with my entire life. My perfectionism is so deeply rooted that it often keeps me from doing something I really want to do because I'm afraid it won't be as good as I know it could or should be in my head. But being perfectionistic in our homeschooling and our parenting can really derail us. It doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect. It doesn't have to be social media worthy. Life is messy and life is imperfect. And if we can embrace that mess and imperfection, we're going to have the most memorable and interesting moments and the deepest connections with our kids. And so if we're feeling burnt out and we're feeling overwhelmed with the need to be perfect, if we can just take a step back and recognize that life is messy and imperfect and embrace those moments, then we are going to have a richer life and we're going to be able to find joy in those moments even when it seems hard. Sometimes our kids can be resistant. They don't want to step out. They don't want to break away from their own interests and try new things for reasons very similar to why we don't, as parents don't, perfectionistic. And or if we're talking about neurodivergent kids, maybe they're rigid in their thinking and struggle with flexibility. And so we want to find ways to meet our kids where they are and help them find that joy and wonder too. One of the ways that we could do that is to help start with our kids' passions and interests. I mentioned the watercolor kits that I got, and that's something that I've been interested in. But I also mentioned that we're starting our year with entomology because I know that's something one of my kids is interested in. So if we can follow their passions and their interests and use those interests to help spark joy and wonder, then we can deepen those connections and just, again, help our kids find ways to find that love and joy in their lives. We want to make sure that we're really cognizant of their sensory needs, their emotional needs, their social needs, their physiological needs, and we're meeting them where they are and helping them to grow in each of those areas. And then we want to recognize and celebrate wins, big and small. Helping our kids see the moments of growth that they have, whether they're giant moments and perceptible or small imperceptible moments of growth. It can make everything, learning and living and loving and messing up and picking themselves back up, feel rewarding for its own sake. Everyone struggles at times. Every one of my kids has struggled at a different time throughout their lives, and I've struggled. I have been struggling lately with this idea of my parenthood changing, my kids growing up, not being able to do some of the things that I used to do with my homeschool because we're just busier in a different way. When I can concentrate on the things that I have done well, I feel better. So I know that if I can help my kids do that too, they'll feel better too. Because we all are disappointed sometimes by friends, by relatives, by circumstance. And when we keep moving forward and we keep doing the things that we are meant to do and we keep achieving and growing, we get better and we become better people and more resilient and more confident and happier. And when we focus on the people who are in our lives that mean the most, our life is more meaningful. I am constantly reminded of how blessed and lucky I am when I look at my kids, their relationships with each other, the talents and gifts that they have, the people they're becoming, and the people that they've surrounded themselves with. I love nothing more than seeing my kids' people enjoy them because I know that others see how amazing they are, just like I do. And so we want to celebrate that, and we want our kids to see it too and be able to celebrate it. And we can do that by being more mindful in our own parenting. When we pause and notice those joyful moments with our kids, even in the midst of chaos or mess or chores not being done or anything, we are better parents for it. We are able to model joy. We're able to model gratitude. We're able to show them how to be leaders and servants of the people we love. I want my kids to know that I'm there for them anytime they need me. And if for some reason I can't be there at that exact moment, there's a really good reason, and I will be there the second I'm able. I want them to know that their happiness and being and their life and health and emotional support is the most important thing to me. And I want to show them. I want to lead by example, because kids and young adults learn by observing. When we show curiosity, joy, wonder, when we take pleasure in encouraging other people, when we ask them what they need or what we can do for them, when we do for them and others, they learn and they do it too, and they become the best versions of themselves. And that's what we're doing here. We're not raising kids and homeschooling kids to be copies of us. That would be ridiculous, because they're their own person. We want them to be the best versions of who they're meant to be, and we can help that along by just modeling being good people. And this just is a super simple way to keep joy the central focus, the wonder, the central focus in your whole learning process, whether it's through those small daily rituals and habits of caring for and loving your kids, to creating learning opportunities or surprise rides or helping to foster that flexible mindset. It all comes together to build this curious, joy-filled, wonder-seeking family life that is just so rich. I want to encourage you this week to find something fun or joyful or wonder-inducing about every single day. Notice small moments of wonder, be gentle with yourselves, and model this noticing for your kids. This week, I want to challenge you. Set aside a day to just let curiosity lead your learning. And if you can't set aside a day because you're too busy, I will tell you I can't do a day this week. The week that this is airing, I cannot do a day. I am going, and it's going to be a crazy week. But I could do an hour. I could do a couple hours of just setting things aside, the routine aside, and letting curiosity lead. And watch what unfolds as we just go for a walk together, have a conversation together, swing on swings at the park together, look for frogs, whatever. Share your experiences if you're up for it or willing on social media and tag me, or with a friend. If you're not comfortable sharing on social media, that's fine too. But I encourage you to share what you discovered when you let curiosity lead, when you let wonder lead, and how you felt about it, at least with a friend. But I would love it if you'd share and tag me on social media. All right. Coming up in the next couple weeks, we're going to talk more about really infusing a love of learning in your homeschool and in your family so it lasts a lifetime. We're going to talk about play, like I said before, and then we've got a whole lineup of other episodes that are going to be just amazing. We're taking a deep dive the last part of this calendar year to read and discuss my newest book, The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners, in my Learners Lab community. And you can find out more about the community either by just reaching out and emailing me or messaging me on social media, or going to raisinglifelonglearners.com and clicking on the button that says Learners Lab and see what it's all about, and if you'd be interested in joining us for a month to check it out and hopefully sticking around and spending the year with us. But if not, I'd encourage you to pick up the book at your local library or wherever books are sold, because I really think no matter where in your homeschool journey you are, it will give you encouragement and practical things you can apply every single day to just make your homeschool a little bit better. There's a whole chapter on wonder and joy in there, and a whole section at the end of it on takeaways and take actions, things you can do right in the moment to find more joy and wonder in your homeschool. Reach out if you have any questions, if you have an idea for a topic for a future podcast, or if you just want to tell me how you're finding wonder in your homeschool. Over on the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast, there is a contact form link, And you can email me through the contact form, or you can leave a voicemail with the voicemail widget. And I reply to all of them. So I'd love to hear from you. And as always, a special thank you again to CTC Math for continuing to sponsor us and make this podcast happen. We appreciate them, and they're a great math program. So you should definitely check them out at ctcmath.com. All right. Don't forget your challenge for the week. Set aside an hour a day. Let curiosity and wonder lead your learning and your explorations that day, and then share your experience with us. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you have a great week. Love those kids. Adventure with them. You've got this. I'm so proud of you. You are a great homeschool parent, and you are doing an amazing thing for your kids. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.